Y'all, today we need to talk about some brand new information that just dropped. The topic of the day, damage overtimes, heal overtimes, and how they're currently used in Wizard101. So this information is from the live stream of Cam or Hephaestus, one of the people at Wizard101 that currently works on spell design. And unlike the scales of Destiny change and the Storm Elf change that is confirmed upcoming in the next patch, this is more like a topic of active discussion, it seems. But according to Cam, they're actively considering making heal and damage overtime conditionals into gambits. Now, this is a weirdly complicated concept, but the implications of the spell change are actually pretty massive in both PvE and PvP. So let's look at how currently dot and heal overtime conditionals even work. What even are they? Right, if you're a healing or damage overtime in school, you'll have certain spells that do extra stuff when you have up to 4 dots on your opponent or up to 4 heals on yourself. For example, Scion, it does 1625 damage up front on your opponent if you have 3 damage overtimes on your opponent. Let's take a simpler example, right? Seraph, it'll do 300 something damage, but if you have a heal on yourself, it'll do well over that, 540. But unlike other hanging effects in the game, damage overtimes and heal overtimes for some reason are very, very different. What you'll notice is that for things that aren't, you know, dots and hots, you actually have to give up something in order to get extra effect, right? Like Phoenix, let's say that you have traps on your opponent, this spell will actually take away those traps to give you heals. That's what makes it a gambit. But Scion, it does the extra damage, that 1600, but it doesn't take away the 3 dots that's on your opponent while it does it. This actually somewhat breaks the game in some interactions. Right now, it seems to me that Fire is basically, almost every Fire is doing this. They bum rush that triple dot fusion of Moot Fury and try to end the game with either an Efreet into a Scion or just a Scion, depending on, you know, what they pull, what matchup they're going against. And what Efreet and Scion both do is they don't actually gambit any of the dots on your opponent to do all of this extra stuff. It just becomes an endless chain of damage overtimes and damage that is basically impossible to keep up with unless you're already on a damage overtime countering school. And even then, it's not guaranteed that you can keep up with how oppressive these combos are. This is a little bit less relevant, but there's also examples of spells that can be used kind of infinitely, like Bottom Pat Storm Out. Right, this spell actually gives you pips for having heals up to 4, so this could literally give you 12 pips if you have 4 heals on yourself. But let's say that you bury at full pips, you can actually storm out multiple times over and over again and keep getting pips. It's like a checkmate for one turn where your opponent isn't on top of your heals. It's actually kind of nuts. The proposed change that they're going to be doing is make heal and damage overtime conditionals just like all the other hanging effects, shields, traps, blades, and weaknesses. And what it looks like they're considering is actually to buff most of the spells that are conditionals right now. So for example, right, Seraph, while yes, you would have to give up a heal in order to do extra damage, this spell, instead of doing 540, maybe we're going to be looking at something above 600 just for healing once. I don't even know how you could possibly buff Bottom Pad Storm Out because it's so ridiculous. But yes, if you had to give up a heal instead of just getting stuff for having a heal, this spell will become more powerful. Will we see it do more damage? Will we see it give more pips? Who the hell knows? But yes, even spells that are already pretty damn good right now could be seeing a buff. I think the most notable change will be that Scion of Fire, because it'll be doing, you know, it'll be actually giving up dots. It'll be doing even more than it does right now, which is kind of crazy. It probably will be getting buffed if this change goes through. We could also be seeing heal gambits, right? Which is something we've never really seen before, but they will also be buffed. So for example, Life Scion, Thundering Jin, Infernal Oni, all of these spells are going to be doing more than they do now if they go through with the change, so that you're actually giving up heals, but you're actually getting compensated for it. Now, this could actually affect PvE if they end up changing other spells other than Seraph, or if they make spells like Seraph, like, really compensate you for giving up a heal. We could be seeing new incentives on the life school to actually give up your heal so you could do more damage. I think I could totally see in PvE scenarios where your team needs healing, you group heal, but then you could actually set up for a hit because your school can do the most damage when you have heals on yourself by giving up those heals, right? They could be doing some kind of like beautiful ass concept that would be really, really good for PvE. In a lot of ways, I think this is probably more relevant in PvE than anything, because you have to kind of think twice in PvP whether a heal is worth giving up. In a lot of scenarios, the reason to heal in a team setting anyways is not even for the life, but for the person that they're running the dungeon with. It could be really, really cool, especially if we see more spells, right? Maybe something like Seraph where you can maybe give up 2 heals or 3 heals for even more damage, right? I would absolutely love if they could do that with the gnomes, because right now, all it really does is it heals for healing And it's going to run into an issue if they make this change, because what are you going to do? Give up heals just to heal more? Kind of doesn't make sense. We might be seeing bottom paths that are heal conditionals right now that are honestly kind of problematic or useless or only used to like stall out game. We could see these becoming actual sources of offense for the life school. I think that's the biggest thing that's going to happen out of this, other than maybe some miscellaneous buffs here and there. Now, the keen-eyed individuals, the screenshot that I posted where we actually went over what Cam said on stream, you might have noticed they said very explicitly that they don't know what they're going to be doing with the Ifrit. And I'm going to assume that the logic that they're applying onto Ifrit is also going to be applied to gnomes, but basically I guess spells that do more dotting for having dots on your opponent or more healing for having heals on your opponent, it won't really be that compatible with a gambit scenario, right? Why would you gambit a dot for more dots unless there's just something about the new dot that you're getting? Now, the specific words that were used is they might not actually change Ifrit, but they will probably have to nerf it, because I guess under this new rule set, this would actually just be way too OP, right? If you don't even have to give up the dot, this can't be doing way more than things that do give up dots, right? So I think that's just logical. So a weird, like, you know, I guess like net output of this change could be that really spam spells like gnomes that prolong games and Ifrit, which just literally like prolong dots in a way that's very hard to keep up with. These spells might be getting nerfed. Who knows what they're gonna do? I think there are several problems with Ifrit, not just the damage that it gives you, but also how long the dots that you get for dotting are. Let's say that you have 3 dots on your opponent simply by emoting. You then, by doing this, get 3 more dots that all last 6 rounds, which gives you 6 rounds to do another Ifrit or to do another Scion. Once you get a triple dot Ifrit on someone, it's actually pretty much impossible to lose, because all you have to do is get more pips and either literally use the same thing again or just finish off the game with Scion. So I think they are going to have to figure out how to make it so that this isn't as oppressive as it is. I'm sure anybody that's gone against a fire has already seen this. Fire PvP pretty much is all about just doing a triple dot as fast as possible, so you can just accelerate that effect more and more with the Ifrit. That's literally all the game has come down to. The counters don't really keep up, so I would welcome any change where this spell is just a little bit less oppressive, especially if it comes with other things that other schools can do for sacrificing dots, sacrificing heal. I think my big question is, how are the devs really gonna, like, you know, figure out a way to make heals and dots not like kind of gameable? Like, in my opinion, if I were to like try to get the maximum value out of a hot or a dot and I could sacrifice it, what I would do is wait until the very last round of the heal overtime and then do the heal conditional, right? Wait until the very last round of a dot and then sacrifice it, because there's nothing left on the damage on it, right? Are they squaring that against the fact that the more rounds a dot or a hot is out, the more rounds your opponent has to respond to it? Maybe, but it does feel like you could get disproportionately extra value with the gambit function, with things that literally do stuff every round. It's still a very different conversation than something like shields, weaknesses, blades, or traps, which follow more traditional rules when it comes to sacrificing them to do extra stuff. I will say this, y'all. If they get the Storm Elf ban, which is, you know, something that I think everybody agrees with, and the Scales of Destiny nerf, which again, I think people agree that these spells are just getting spammed because they're way too high damage per pip. If they deal with that and actually have a good conversation, get a good solution to the game regarding dots and hot, we could be looking at, once again, a much more balanced meta. We haven't had a balanced meta in PvP. We haven't really had ways to use healing and dots in PvE, even in the conversation until now. I'm looking forward to having a playable meta again. I can't remember the last time we had one. It's been months now, and I'm hoping that this change actually introduces some really cool stuff for PvE. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts on this. What would y'all like to have done on, I guess, healing and damage overtime schools? We're talking about Myth, Storm, Life, and Fire. What new abilities do y'all think those schools should have for the sacrifice of dots and for the sacrifice of hots? I think we could be looking at a whole new class of spells that do stuff that we've never seen before. Leave y'all spell ideas in the comments. Maybe they'll use one of them as they're going through this change if this goes through. As always, I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts and comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Leave a sub if you're new. And as always, y'all, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon. And yeah.